the secret code.
Randy. And then he starts cold reading this audience. Now, the show was edited to make it look as if he would make a good job of this, but he didn't make a pig's ear of it, because fortunately people who I correspond with over the net were at the recorder of the show. They saw what happened, and they saw Randy make a complete mess of it, but they cut it and cut it and cut it to make it look as if he was doing well. So he then does hot reading. Now, if anyone doesn't know what hot reading is, this means the people, the researchers for the show, find out as much as they can about the audience and feed it to the guy that's doing the actual readings. So he knows what he's talking about before he starts. And everybody goes, how did he know that? Because they'd been told, that's why. So the only place that he made a good job of this show was actually when he was doing the hot readings, and he did it very well indeed, so he should, because there was a microphone in his ear telling them what to say. But anyway, his last major feat on Ultimate Psychic Challenge was when Kate Garrow asked him to perform a magic trick about conjuring, which he did because he is a good conjurer. But bear in mind, that's what he is, the guy is a conjurer, and he's also a debunker. I say, these guys will never ever admit the reality of psychic phenomenon. So we'll move on from there and we'll go to the mechanism behind the paranormal. There is no difference between extraterrestrial and paranormal phenomenon. No difference whatsoever. And I'm going to give you an example of this. About 2 years ago, we interviewed a guy in my home. We asked him to come through. He lives on about... Robert lived about 50 miles away, like something like that. Robert? Yeah. He came through the house and we said, okay, come and tell us your story. And he came through. Pardon. And in the house, at the time, had a guy called Archie Laurie, who was the investigations director for the west coast of Scotland for the SSPR, which is the Scottish Society for Psychic Research, which is of course the sister organisation for the SPR, which is based in London. And he had a medium with him, quite a good one. Anyway, Robert came along because Robert had from quite a young age a series of encounters with what he termed as ETs. Now, the odd thing was that as Robert progressed, that the encounters got a bit less and less. They never stopped. They were always there. And Robert eventually ended up in a spiritualist church. I've been to spiritualist churches as well, I might add, and I've had psychics telling me stuff that was absolute nonsense. I'd no bearing. I'm not saying that perhaps the message wasn't for me, but what they were giving me was not accurate. Anyway, Robert went along to this church in Glasgow, and he was sitting there, and he had never met the medium before, but he'd never been in this church before, or this hall, should I say, it wasn't really a church. And the medium was on the stage, a bit like this, I suppose, and he said, there's a gentleman sitting at the back, that gentleman there, and he singled out Robert, and he said, look, he said, the strange thing is, he said, I've got 3 beings beside me. He said, now, this information is not particularly for this church, but he said, I'm getting told I've got to bring it through, and I've got to express it to you. He said, can you take spacemen? Does spacemen mean anything to you? And Robert says, yeah, it does. Well, he says, I've got 3 spacemen standing beside me. And he described them. And what he had standing beside him was 3 greys, okay, standing beside him. And Robert didn't know what the hell to do. He said, and they're saying that your experiences, your encounters with them in the past were genuine, they were real, but don't worry, because nobody will believe you if you tell them anyway. So the guy, the medium, who actually managed to speak to him, I might add, because I don't take this sort of thing in trust. I've got to go out and check it. The medium told him that he was getting really upset, and he didn't want to say any more, and he was getting visibly upset. Had to be taken from the platform and taken through by the person who organised the church. Now, Robert went at the end of the meeting, asked, could he please speak to the medium, and the woman said, no, you've obviously influenced the meeting by projecting thoughts at him. You've upset him, and we don't want you back in this church again. Which wasn't very hospitable, I didn't think. But anyway, 6 months later, Robert went back, and there was another medium. So Robert's sitting there on his own, didn't recognise anybody there. He said, new medium, woman this time. the medium says to him, I've got a message for the gentleman at the back. The gentleman that's with me, and she described who was with him. And the gentleman that was the spirit that had turned up, I'm using the term spirit, that's another one we'll come back to, but the spirit that had turned up was J. Allan Hynek, who by that time was long dead, and former chairman of Project Blue Book. If you don't know what Project Blue Book was, it's an American committee set up originally to debunk ufology. However, Hynek became a believer, and he had turned up at this spiritualist meeting to reassure Robert that the words we used were that the previous meeting he had been at, that the information was accurate, that the three entities knew him, and that he shouldn't worry about it because he wouldn't be believed anyway. So we've now got three so-called greys, ET entities. We've now got J. Allan Hynek coming through. So, and these are coming to get through a medium to him. So what's going on here? Does this mean that ETs are ghosts or ghosts are ETs? Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, because I tend to think you'll find by the time they finish this, you'll start to see that there is no difference between the two sets. I should mention in passing that the extraterrestrial hypothesis for me is a non-starter. I don't accept it. I don't believe that encounters with so-called spaceships or whatever start in a linear fashion from Proxima Centauri to our little Sol and hence to us here on Earth. I don't think that happens. I'll tell you why. Because to do that in any sensible fashion, you're going to start invoking time travel. Because to do that in any sensible fashion, you're going to travel at a hell of a velocity. You're going to have to travel at super light speeds. And when you start travelling very fast, you start warping time. Time changes. And I think Albert Einstein, who actually comes up later on in this presentation, proved that quite nicely. However, things are changing. However, faster than light speeds, space gets warped, and they're all facets of accessing alternate dimensions. So we're actually talking about hyperspace now, because hyperspace within quantum physics is a reality. Whether we like it or not, quantum physicists are telling us, yes, there is such a thing as hyperspace, and we do dip into it. However, and these alternate dimensions may well exist within hyperspace, or hyperspace may, the other way around, may exist within the alternate dimensions. Now, how do you actually create a rip into hyperspace? Using gravity, it would appear. Intense gravitational fields. Now, electromagnetic fields, gravitational fields, and paranormal events. Now, what I'm going to do now, that lady that was up on there figures quite highly in the sex of the talk, if we could actually get it to work, but I'm just going to press on in, because actually we're still only at slide 3. We're still only at slide 3. Okay, right.
It's a mystery.
I know what you're saying, brother. Yeah, they've been at us again. Now, what I'm going to tell you about now is a series of experiments, not experiments, but cases that I actually got involved in, involving, how can I put this, magnetic field. You might think that I'm actually scattergunning this at you just now, but you'll see that towards the end of this will all start coming together. It'll start coalescing into some sort of sensible and rational outlook. But there's been a story going around of something called the McKenzie Poltergeist. Now, the McKenzie Poltergeist is supposed to, I say supposed in inverted commas, haunt the Covenanters prison, which is in Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh. An outfit called City of the Dead Tours exploits this fact and takes people into the haunted mausoleum where people are supposedly attacked by this poltergeist. Maybe they are, who knows. However, we went up there, and with me I had the medium Anne-Marie, I had a partner, and I had my trusty tri-field meter with me. Never go anywhere ghost hunt without a tri-field meter, I might add. You get some very interesting results with them. So what actually happened was that we were actually in the Covenanters prison. I might add, the Covenanters prison is about 100 metres long. Between the mausoleums is a space maybe about 15 metres. Some of them are open, some of them are closed. Now, we're walking down through, it's kept locked, I'll tell you why it's kept locked. It's not actually to protect the graves, it's to keep the drunks out. Because Edinburgh is a very cosmopolitan city, and sadly it has its own underclass, and there is somewhere to go and have their garden parties, and they have them sometimes in the Covenanters prison, where the mausoleums that are open have no doors but have roofs, give them a nice little house to get drunk in and lie and sleep. Anyway, they keep them out. In fact, the first time we were up, the guy who works with the cemetery service in Edinburgh had to clear all the special brew cans out the one we wanted to get into at the time. However, that's by the by. Anne-Marie goes in and she's walking around, and I'm sort of taking background readings with the Tri-Field meter. There's not a lot happening. She suddenly says, there's a gentleman, he's standing over there with that door there. So I walks across, Tri-Field meter, higher magnetic reading at that point. I say, so what? She says, there's somebody standing over there. The meter reading drops off. I goes across, holds the meter where she's indicating, higher magnetic field. This happened 3 or 4 times. At one point we're standing down the bottom of the Covenanters prison. Actually, same prison, it maybe gives you an impression of some huge, it's not a huge building at all, it's an open air area where they corralled all the Covenanters at the time of the Covenanter Wars in Scotland, before bloody McKenzie actually dragged them out and hung them. Most of them were hung because McKenzie was well in the payment of the Parliament at the time, but that's all politics. Anyway, Anne-Marie said, there's people passing us just now, they're coming right behind us, and the meter went whang, right off scale, came back on again. So what's happening here? Does this mean that there are entities there? Does it mean these entities are creating their own magnetic field? Or does it mean that these were naturally occurring magnetic fields that she was interpreting as an entity? So what's happening, and it's all happening within her own mind. So, no, I won't say mind, I'll say brain, because the two are different. So it's very, very difficult to know what was going on here. Now, another thing I'm going to talk about is what happened when she channeled an entity for me. Now, while I was working in BP at the time, BP Chemicals in Grangemouth, and one of the guys said, when you're doing your investigations, he says, well, you know how we human beings have souls? This is what we're supposed to have. He said, do you reckon extraterrestrials have souls? I said, good thinking. That's a good idea. I have no idea. I don't see why not. Animals have souls. Why not extraterrestrials, you know? So I said, well, could you channel an ET for us? And she said, yeah, I don't see why not. So I was asked along with my trusty meters and bits and pieces and camcorders and all everything that goes with it to their shop. It's a little place called Woodmakers, a place called Denny, which is not far from Bonnybridge, I might add, the famous Bonnybridge thing. My wife comes from Bonnybridge. Never seen a UFO yet, have you, darling? But yeah, she comes from Bonnybridge anyway, there you are. But as you know, it's the UFO capital of Britain, if not Scotland. It's no East Kilbride, but that's another story. Anyway, we goes along to Denny, and Anne-Marie was there, the partner Jim, myself. So I set up the camera, fully charged batteries, clips it all together, let's go. Right, can you go into the trance? We'll go into trance now. Starts going into trance, switched on the camcorder, flat battery, bang, straight off. Anyway, puts another battery, then as soon as she started channeling the entity, flat battery, bang. 2 batteries flat, fully charged, bang, completely gone. As soon as the thing started coming through. So I'm starting to say, electromagnetic fields, electric energy, power, is this some sort of payoff? Is this some sort of, how does it work, the thermodynamics, cause and effect? You can't get action without an equal and opposite reaction. Are these entities powering themselves up from the camcorder batteries? There's no other way of explaining this. But I certainly have.
Goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah.